In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. These words mark the start of everything we know, the universe, life, and even time itself. But what does it mean that God created the world in 6 days? Can science and the Bible truly align on the story of creation? Today, we dive into Genesis 1, where God's creativity and power are on full display, giving us not just the foundation of the world, but of our very faith. Stick with me as we explore how this ancient story connects with our lives today. Genesis 1 is one of the most famous chapters in the Bible. In it, we see the creation of the world, everything that exists, from the heavens above to the earth below. But as we dive deeper into these opening verses, there's much more going on than just a simple description of how the world came to be. In this chapter, we see the character of God revealed in profound ways. Genesis doesn't just tell us how God created, it shows us who He is. And how He created the world is just as important as why. In Genesis 1, we see a God of order, purpose, and sovereignty. Let's start from the very beginning. Genesis 1 opens with the iconic words, "In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth." In these first few words, we are introduced to God as the creator, not just of the earth, but of everything. The earth, we are told, was formless and empty, covered in darkness. But then something incredible happens. God speaks, "Let there be light." And just like that, light appears, separating day from night. This moment isn't just about the creation of light, but the establishment of order. Before God spoke, everything was in chaos, but His words brought light and order into the universe. This first day's creation sets the tone for the rest of the chapter. God doesn't just create randomly, He creates with purpose and intentionality. The idea that God speaks the universe into existence highlights His sovereignty and authority over all things. Every act of creation shows that He is in control. The second day, sky and waters, Genesis 1 verses 6 to 8. On the second day, God creates the expanse or firmament, the sky. He separates the waters below from the waters above, creating the atmosphere that we experience today. As He calls this expanse heaven, He is establishing the boundaries between heaven and earth. Here we can see a powerful image of God as the organizer of chaos, giving structure to the world. This idea of separation is important. It sets the stage for God to define order in a world that was initially without form. The contrast of light and dark, sky and sea, all show how God's creation is intentional and well-ordered. The third day, land and vegetation, Genesis 1 verses 9 to 13. Now, God moves to create the dry land. He gathers the waters together, allowing the land to appear, and from this land, He causes the earth to produce all kinds of vegetation. Plants, trees, fruits, and seeds. God doesn't just make the land, He fills it with life. Notice how God doesn't just create things in isolation. Everything is interconnected. The land is created to be inhabited, the plants to give food, and the trees to provide seed for future growth. This is a picture of God's plan for sustainability, where every part of creation has a purpose and is interconnected with the rest. Through this, we see the abundance of God's nature, where His provision for life is more than enough to sustain it. This speaks to the heart of God's generosity. He doesn't just create, He gives life in abundance. The fourth day, sun, moon, and stars, Genesis 1 verses 14 to 19. On the fourth day, God creates the sun, moon, and stars to govern the day and night. The purpose of these heavenly bodies is to mark time, the days, seasons, and years. They are not just sources of light, they are the governors of time, keeping the world in rhythm. Here, God shows us that time itself is a creation, a tool for order, and a reflection of His eternal nature. The universe doesn't operate randomly, it operates according to God's perfect timing. And He has established rhythms for work, rest, and seasons. As we look at the stars, the moon, and the sun, we are reminded that God, in His sovereignty, has put everything in its place. The world doesn't function by chance, it works according to His purpose and design. The fifth day, creatures of the sea and sky, Genesis 1 verses 20 to 23. On the fifth day, God creates the creatures of the sea and the birds of the air. From the vast oceans to the skies above, God fills the earth with life. These creatures are not just created for function, they are made to flourish. And when God creates them, He doesn't just bless them with existence, He blesses them to multiply and fill the earth. This is an incredible moment of God's generosity. His creation isn't static. It's dynamic, always moving, growing, and multiplying according to His will. The creatures God creates serve a purpose. Not only are they part of the ecosystem, but they also reflect God's creativity. As humans, we are invited to recognize His masterpiece in every living thing around us. The sixth day, land animals and humans. Genesis 1 verses 24 to 31. Finally, on the sixth day, God creates the land animals and human beings. God makes creatures like cattle, wild animals, and creeping things, each according to their kind. But then, in a truly unique moment, God says, "Let us make man in our image, in our likeness." This is a pivotal moment in all of creation. God forms man from the dust and breathes life into him, and in doing so, human beings are given a special role in creation. We are made in the image of God, a distinction that sets us apart from the rest of creation. God gives humans dominion over the earth. He entrusts us with the care of His creation. And as He looks at everything He has made, He declares it very good. This moment reflects God's satisfaction, His joy in His creation, and His ongoing commitment to His work. So, what does Genesis 1 mean for us today? Well, we learn a lot from the creation story. First, we see that God is sovereign. He is the creator of everything, and nothing happens without His will. This is a reminder for us to trust in His timing and purpose, even when life feels uncertain or chaotic. Second, we learn that creation is good. God's world was not a mistake. It's filled with beauty, purpose, and potential. As Christians, we are called to be good stewards of God's creation, protecting and preserving what He has made. This means not only taking care of the environment, but also being mindful of how we interact with the world, remembering that it was created by God and meant to reflect His goodness. Third, we are made in God's image. This means we have inherent dignity and purpose. We are not accidents. We are loved and created with intentionality. The very fact that we are made in God's image calls us to live lives that reflect His glory, lives of purpose, creativity, and service to the world around us. Genesis 1 also reminds us that God creates with order and purpose. In a world full of chaos and uncertainty, we can rest in the knowledge that God's plan for us is not random. Just as God created the world with order, He is creating a purposeful plan for our lives. As we begin our journey through Genesis, I encourage you to reflect on these truths. Take a moment to look at the world around you and see it through the lens of God's creation. Beautiful, ordered, and purposeful. If this exploration of Genesis has sparked questions or thoughts, please comment below. Let's dive deeper together. Don't forget to subscribe to Bible Questions Hub and share this video with anyone who needs to hear the story of how God created the world.